gala sparkled with old money and older prejudices. Crystal glasses clinked as Manhattan's elite congratulated themselves on their generosity, while my family, the board of directors, held court at the central table. I adjusted my simple black dress at my small corner table, watching my Uncle Richard announce the foundation's achievements. The same uncle who, 6 months ago, had banned me from the board with the words, "You don't deserve a seat at this table." The Wellington Foundation continues its proud tradition, he boomed into the microphone, of responsible traditional philanthropy. Unlike some modern charitable trends, we maintain strict standards about who we support and how. Those strict standards were exactly why I'd left the family business 2 years ago. Their idea of charity was writing small checks to prestigious museums and symphony orchestras, while ignoring pressing social issues that desperately needed funding. "Sarah," my cousin Victoria stage whispered from the next table, "I'm surprised you showed up. Didn't you have some alternative charity event to attend?" The way she said alternative dripped with disdain. She'd never forgiven me for suggesting the foundation fund education programs in underserved communities instead of another wing for the Metropolitan Museum. My phone buzzed quietly, a message from Marcus, my financial advisor. "Everything's in place. The transfer is complete. Ready when you are." I smiled, thinking about the past 2 years. While my family thought I was finding myself, or going through a phase, I'd been building something they couldn't imagine. The tech company I'd founded had gone public 6 months ago, making me a billionaire several times over. But I'd kept my wealth quiet, working through anonymous holding companies and discreet investment firms. Most importantly, I'd become the foundation's mysterious benefactor, the anonymous donor who'd given $50 million with very specific requirements about how it should be used. And now, my father took the podium. "We have a special announcement. As you know, the foundation has recently expanded its reach, funding several unusual programs." I bit back a laugh. They'd had no choice but to fund those unusual programs, education initiatives, community health centers, environmental projects. My donation had come with strict conditions about fund allocation. "This expansion," he continued, looking uncomfortable, "was made possible by an anonymous benefactor who has, until now, chosen to remain in the shadows. Tonight they've agreed to reveal themselves." Victoria leaned over again. "Probably some guilty tech billionaire trying to buy respectability. Not like our old money dignity." "Ladies and gentlemen," my Uncle Richard returned to the microphone, "it is my honor to announce that our mysterious $50 million benefactor is here tonight, and has agreed to join the foundation's board of directors." The room hushed with anticipation. My mother straightened her pearls, probably hoping it was someone from the social register. My father scanned the crowd, his eyes passing over me without pause. I stood up slowly, smoothing my dress. "Actually, Uncle Richard, I believe that's my seat at the table." The silence that fell over the ballroom was absolute. Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. My father's face turned a shade of white I'd never seen before. "Impossible," my uncle whispered into the microphone, the word echoing through the stunned room. My phone buzzed again. "Ms. Wellington, the press release is ready. Forbes and Wall Street Journal are standing by for your exclusive interviews." I walked toward the podium, each click of my heels against marble punctuating the silence. "Shall we discuss those strict standards about who deserves a seat at the table?" The foundation's future and my family's carefully maintained world was about to change forever. The gala's ornate reception room had never felt smaller than when my father, Uncle Richard, and the rest of the foundation's board practically dragged me into it, away from the shocked whispers of the main ballroom. "This is preposterous," Uncle Richard sputtered, his bow tie askew. "You couldn't possibly have that kind of money." I perched on the edge of an antique desk, pulling out my tablet. "Would you like to see the transfer records? Or perhaps the ownership documents for Wellington Innovations? That little tech startup you all mocked when I left the family firm." "Wellington Innovations?" My cousin James stepped forward, his face pale. "The AI company that went public last quarter? That's worth $6 billion as of market close today," I finished. Though my ownership was carefully hidden behind holding companies. "Can't have the Wellington name associated with something so, what did you call it, Victoria? Alternative?" Victoria sank into a leather chair, her perfect composure cracking. All those board meetings where we discussed the mysterious donors' demands were quite entertaining, I smiled. Especially when you called the donors' focus on education naive and obviously new money. Tell me, how does it feel to know your little cousin was pulling the strings? My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. Time magazine wants to feature you in their Innovators Changing Philanthropy issue. Also, the education initiative results are in. Speaking of pulling strings, I continued, projecting data onto the wall. Let's look at what that naive education program achieved in 6 months. Graduation rates up 40%. College acceptance doubled. Job placement. Enough, my father interrupted. This isn't what the Wellington Foundation stands for. No, I agreed, standing up. The foundation stands for maintaining the status quo. For keeping power and influence exactly where it's always been. That's why you kicked me out when I suggested actual change. Uncle Richard straightened his tie, attempting to regain control. The board won't stand for this manipulation. We'll return the money. Will you? I raised an eyebrow. The $50 million has already been allocated. The programs are running. And the press releases about the mysterious tech billionaire democratizing philanthropy go out in. I checked my phone, 20 minutes. My mother, who had been quietly watching, finally spoke. Sarah, darling, surely we can discuss this privately. As a family. Like we discussed my removal from the board? I turned to her. Or like we discussed the foundation's rejection of every progressive proposal I made? The door opened and Marcus entered with a stack of folders. Ms. Wellington, the new board structure documents are ready. Also, the mayor's office called about partnering on the citywide education initiative. Victoria stood up, smoothing her designer dress. New board structure? Oh yes, I smiled, taking the folders. Part of the donation agreement you all signed without reading carefully. Section 7.3. Upon revelation of the donor's identity, the board composition must be restructured to include equal representation from community leaders and education experts. We never agreed to that. Uncle Richard grabbed the original agreement, flipping through pages frantically. Surely you did. Right after you mocked my naive suggestion to include diverse voices in foundation leadership. Ironic, isn't it? My father stepped forward, his voice heavy with realization. You planned this. All of it. I learned from the best, I replied. You taught me that money talks. I just decided to make it say something different. The room fell silent as the weight of the situation sank in. The foundation they'd controlled for generations was about to change fundamentally, and there was nothing they could do about it. My phone buzzed again, a message that made me smile. Well, I said, gathering my things, as fascinating as this is, I have a press conference to prepare for. Oh, and Victoria? That alternative charity event you mentioned? It's in an hour and every major media outlet will be there. As I walked toward the door, my father called out, Sarah, wait. What do you want? I turned back one last time, remembering all the board meetings where they'd dismissed my ideas, all the galas where they'd treated me like an embarrassment. What I've always wanted, Dad. Real change. The question is, are you ready to be part of it, or should I continue working around you? The next morning I sat in my real office, the top floor of a sleek downtown tower that housed Wellington Innovations. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city we were about to change, including the old Wellington Foundation building, looking smaller than ever. Ms. Wellington, my assistant Emma entered. The morning shows are all covering the revelation. Your family is in the lobby for the emergency board meeting. I smiled, remembering how they used to make me sit in the lobby when I proposed radical ideas like funding homeless shelters. Send them up. They filed in, looking distinctly uncomfortable in my ultramodern conference room. Gone were their usual expressions of superiority, replaced by something that looked surprisingly like respect or fear. Before we start, I said, turning on the wall of screens, let's see what the world is saying. Every major network was covering the story. Tech billionaire revolutionizes family philanthropy, scrolled across CNN. The Wall Street Journal had already published their feature. Sarah Wellington, the heiress who disrupted legacy giving. Your company, Victoria said quietly, staring at the screens. It's not just AI, is it? No, I confirmed. Wellington Innovations creates technology that helps other nonprofits operate more efficiently. That naive education program you mocked? It's running on our platforms. Along with healthcare initiatives in 30 countries, environmental projects across 4 continents, and microlending programs that have lifted thousands out of poverty. My phone buzzed, a message from the White House. President interested in nationwide implementation of education platform. Available to discuss next week. Uncle Richard picked up one of our annual reports, his hands slightly shaking. All this time while we were calling you misguided. I was building solutions, I nodded. That phase you thought I was going through? I was actually creating systems that make philanthropy more effective, more transparent, and more accessible. Emma entered again. Ms. Wellington, the new board members have arrived. The community leaders and education experts are waiting in the main conference room. My father's head snapped up. You're really going through with this? Changing the entire board. Not changing, I corrected. Evolving. The Wellington Foundation was built on the idea of giving back. I'm just making sure we give back in ways that actually matter. I pressed a button and holographic displays filled the room, real-time data from our programs worldwide. Schools where children were thriving, clinics providing care to the underserved, environmental projects reversing decades of damage. This is what modern philanthropy looks like, I explained. Not just writing checks but creating sustainable change. The question is, are you willing to be part of it? Victoria stood up first, surprising everyone. Teach me, she said. I want to understand all of this. The data doesn't lie, I gestured to the screens. Our new approach has helped more people in 6 months than the foundation helped in the past 5 years. My father watched the numbers scroll by, his worldview visibly shifting. You did this because we wouldn't listen. No, I corrected him. I did this because someone had to. Because having money isn't enough. It's how you use it that matters. My phone buzzed again. UN partnership proposal received. They want to scale the education platform globally. The future of philanthropy isn't about maintaining the status quo, I continued. It's about creating real impact. And now you have to decide. Will you be part of that future or will you be left behind? Uncle Richard finally spoke, his voice heavy with realization. The foundation's reputation. This changes everything. Yes, I agreed. For the better. Your children will grow up in a world where philanthropy means more than galas and museum wings. Where giving back actually changes lives. I walked to the window looking out at the city. The new board meets in an hour. There's still time to be part of it. But understand things will be different. Radically different. One by one they nodded. Even Victoria managed a small smile. Well, she said, you always were the smart one. As the new board members filed in, community leaders, educators, healthcare workers, and yes, some members of my family, I caught my reflection in the window. No longer the misguided daughter they dismissed, but the woman who'd transformed their legacy into something truly meaningful. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in proving others wrong, but in showing them a better way forward. And as I took my seat at the head of the conference table, I knew this was just the beginning of